Jeremy Wade would be terrified of this.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Fishing Loons. This is a podcast brought to you by the Average Ontario Anglers, which is Jesse, wearing the awesome cool red shirt, who does all of the work, and me, who just gets to have fun and help make the content.
Stop reminding me, fool.
He only resents me a lot for that aspect of it. But yeah, we're excited to do another episode, and this is going to be a fun one. This is part of a series we've done ever since the first year we started the podcast. We've been doing this kind of special series of episodes. We sprinkle them in here and there. And this is all about unbelievable fishing lore, is what we call them, which is about mythical creatures or folklore creatures or cryptids that you could possibly find or come across during your fishing adventures. Some of them are just plain stupid. Some of them are absolutely terrifying that I still have nightmares about. I'm hoping to add a couple more of those nightmarish ones to this episode.
Thanks.
That's right. Sleep tight, children. But to start us off, we do have an interesting fishing fact. Jesse has prepared that for me. Well, for us. Not just for me. For us, he's prepared that interesting fishing fact. We're going to pass it on to him, and I'm going to make sure that I try and stay awake for this one, because sometimes he has a way of making his interesting facts monotonously tedious.
Ah, yes. So I just got back from a camping trip just yesterday. I was actually fishing this beautiful, marshy area for largemouth, shallow water. Saw a lot of nature. Caught a few fish. It wasn't the best fishing trip of all time, but I did see a lot of nature, a lot of interesting things. I did see some gar. I saw some bowfin. That was pretty cool. But I also saw a lot of nature, like a lot of great blue herons. But one of the coolest things that I saw was a beaver. And I know that if you fish in Ontario, a beaver is something you probably see on the regular. They always are interesting to see. I remember a few weeks ago, me and Andrew were fishing this back lake, and we saw this beaver just sitting in the lily pads. Mm-hmm. It was almost like it was sitting like a human on the bottom, and its head was just sticking out of just above the lily pads, and it was just chewing on a stick for half an hour.
Legitimately, and I even mentioned to Jesse at the time, is that a capybara? You know how you see them when the zoo and they're just sitting in the water with just their head up, cooling down? Yeah. That's what this thing was doing. We could hear it chewing the lily pad roots.
But I love seeing beavers. Every time I see one, I'm like, oh, look at beaver. Because my brother-in-law was fishing in the front of the canoe. I was like, look at beaver. Just going across. I was like, man, I love beavers. But I saw a study on an Instagram reel or YouTube short or something. And I was like, that's interesting. I want to look up the actual article because the person who made the content, they actually posted the article or the book that this was based on. So I looked it up. Very interesting. So we're going to talk about an interesting fishing fact, which isn't really about fishing, but it's about beavers, which will tie into fishing eventually. Don't worry, people. I'm not going fully beaver rogue on you. But this is about beavers building dams. In 1971, there was a Swedish zoologist named Lars Wilson, and he published a major study on European beavers. It was this book, which sounds like a page-turner, Observations and Experiments on the Ethology of a European Beaver. Exciting title.
Monotonous, tedious.
So he wasn't just a regular dude just watching beavers in nature. That's cool enough. But what he was mostly interested in was the ability for a beaver to build and repair dams. Because I remember a few years ago on the podcast, we talked about the biggest beaver dam in the world, which you can actually see from space. And it's actually in Canada. I think it's in Calgary or something like that.
I think, it's in Alberta, I believe. And it's, I think 0.7 kilometers, 7 something kilometers long.
It's huge. It's like a multi-generational beaver dam that multiple families of beavers over decades have built. But the thing is with these beaver dams is, why are beavers always chopping down trees? It's because not only are they building their dams bigger, but they're also repairing the dams. Because water has a lot of power, right? Water is constantly pressing against their dams, so they're constantly rebuilding them. So this scientist, Lars, we're just going to call him Lars, he wanted to know how beavers know how to repair stuff. He wanted to know, how does a beaver know that flowing water through a dam is a problem? Does a beaver have to see a leak? How does it know? Water's getting through the dam. How does the beaver know that? It has no idea. And how does the beaver learn to do this? Do other beavers teach it? I know some animals like chimpanzees and stuff, they've proven that older chimpanzees will teach the younger ones how to do stuff, to use tools, stuff like that. Do beavers do that? No, they don't. So like he wanted to know how they knew how he was doing it. So he did a lot of experiments with captive beavers, including beavers that had been raised in a controlled condition. So obviously if he had beavers that he took from the wild, they may have already learned how to do something. So he got these beavers that had no prior beaver knowledge and raised in basically captivity or a zoo. And then he started studying them. So the interesting part of this that I found interesting was he discovered the main thing that caused beavers to repair or build a dam was the sound of running water, not actually running water. That's the interesting part. So he had basically a study where he had basically a pipe with water running through it, but it was completely enclosed so you couldn't hear the water, but you could see it. And then he had a speaker that played the noise of running water, and they were on opposite ends of the beaver area. And the beavers passed by the water and started putting sticks and mud around the speaker that was playing sounds of water. Isn't that interesting?
I like it. I want to start making start making water noises to help the beavers work harder.
You have to think of the beaver, he couldn't see any water at that point, but he could hear, or he or she could hear the sound of water escaping. And the beaver was like, heck no, I have to make that stop. So that's pretty interesting. And what happens when they do build a dam? Well, the water level ahead of it rises, right? The lodge entrance is underwater, which is safety for them against predators. They've got easy access to food. They create like a big pond above it, right? Everything is good for the beaver, every single thing. But say something breaks on this beaver dam. Because like we've gone underneath beaver dams where there's like a whole lake pressing down on it. And we're like, man, like you could probably pull out like 3 of those sticks and the whole thing would collapse. It's insane. So you have to think, when these beavers are under there, they built this immense structure, and all of a sudden they start hearing a tinkling sound of water going through. Beavers have to investigate. When they hear water is flowing, their first instinct is to block the water. They have to adjust the structure of the beaver dam sometimes. And this scientist, this Lars Wilson, he observes that beavers aren't always completely rigid in their behavior. In some captive experiments, when they were putting material in one location and it wasn't producing the result that they actually liked, beavers would change the way that they were placing material. So they're actually intelligent. They can think things through. They're like, okay, that's not going to work. I'm going to try this instead. They have an instinctive drive to respond to the sound of water, but they have the ability to adjust their behavior based on what actually is happening. So they're intelligent enough to understand why things wouldn't work and change their plan mid-construction. Isn't that insane? Man, like I've underestimated beavers for so long. Like they do smell and you're like, okay, they're cool. But reading this article, I'm like, man, beavers are super intelligent. They're way smarter than me.
Don't beavers excrete that weird like oil that people use in vanilla scents?
Yes, they do. So they create lots of cool things. Anyway, so we're talking about an animal now that has a strong built-in behavioral response and can also modify what it's building. That's really cool. Props to the beaver. They're really cool animals. So how does this connect back to us to fishing? Because beavers are cool and all, but this is a fishing podcast. This isn't a beaver podcast. If it was, we'd be really low in the rankings, I'm sure. So whenever we see a beaver dam, and some lakes have a lot of them, it produces habitat, right? So a beaver is going to build and repair dams. It slows down the water gets deeper, vegetation becomes flooded, branches and trees fill up the area in the water. Like I know a lot of times around a beaver dam, there's all kinds of like branches and sticks and like logs that fall in the water, which means really good fishing spots. Like how many times have you found a beaver dam and you're like, I need to fish that? Like I've seen Andrew flying across the lake in his boat and he's like, just like throttles down and pulls to the side just because there's a beaver dam on the side. And how many times you catch fish in beaver dams? Almost every time.
Fair bit. Yeah. In the beaver dam. Not so much the beaver lodge, which is interesting because I don't think I've ever caught a fish in front of a beaver lodge that actually is in use.
Maybe the beavers scare the fish off.
Maybe.
So anyway, next time you see a beaver dam, just think for a second and admire the beaver's hard work. You have to respect the beaver because not only are you fishing an amazing spot that's probably going to hold a fish, it's not just a pile of sticks, but it's a very complex engineered structure that a bunch of super intelligent, weird capybara-looking rodents with flat tails made called beavers. So every time now that I see a beaver dam, I'm going to say, thank you, beavers, for being geniuses. And then I'll remove a few bass from their area just because I'm a nice guy. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. It's interesting when you see animals all the time in the area that you fish and you learn a little bit more about them and you're like, no way, that's crazy stuff, right? Especially beavers. Like, they're just like big rats, but man, they're really smart.
I always like them too, except when they start like chasing my canoe and like slapping their tails in a territorial manner. That's a good one. I like that. I like learning things. Speaking of creatures, we're going to move from something that sounds like it should have been made up, like a beaver. You want giant iron teeth and something that smells like vanilla sometimes, but in reality smells really bad, but has a giant flat tail that can engineer amazing dams?
Yes.
Sounds made up. But
It
it's
does.
not. So what about the next things we're going to talk about? In the past, on these fishing lore episodes, we've tried to keep it mainly within Canada. However, something that's as terrifying or more terrifying than any of the creatures we talked about before is invasive species. So I thought, why don't we take this international? Like, we've had a lot of invasive species come into our waters here in Canada, down in the States, stuff like that. There's always things because of, shipping routes and trade routes, stuff like that. What if this happened with cryptids?
Ugh.
You know how terrifying that would be? Of like, oh yes, we have our own in Canada, but all of a sudden we start getting like crazy ones from elsewhere in the world. That's what we're going to explore today.
I'm regretting doing this episode already.
If you are from any of these areas as well, comment down below if you have either heard of these, or even better, if you've seen these things.
And imagine too, if these things that we talk about happen to be here on the lake that you fish.
I have a couple that literally terrify me.
Also, save this podcast when you're around the fire outside in the dark if you're camping.
Yeah.
Thank us later.
So my first one, this is going to take us far away from Ontario and likely far away from any area where our listeners are from. This is from the Antarctic. It is the Ningen, the white giant of Antarctica. So supposedly underneath these frigid, frozen waters, there is the Ningen. It's a Japanese word. It means human. And you're like, okay, it doesn't sound too bad. Maybe someone, fell overboard and poor lost soul. So this thing is supposedly human-shaped. But I'm not talking about some guy in a wetsuit who's like just swirling around underneath the ice and freaking people out like a seal. I'm talking about something that's potentially 20 to 30 meters long. That's about 65 to almost 100 feet. So now picture a giant. It's generally described as completely white or pale with a vaguely humanoid body. Now there's many different versions of the stories. Sometimes it has arms, legs, hands, a rounded head, sometimes even a tail. And that's kind of one of the first problem is there's, like most of these stories, there's a lot of discrepancy. Some people say, okay, well, they'll explain it saying it's a whale. You see a partially emerged whale in the water from a distance. It can look weird. But despite what you see online, like it could be, maybe an iceberg that's like rolling over. That seems pretty plausible, honestly, to me. It seems like the most likely.
Case closed.
The interesting thing about this is a lot of the stories that we talk about are from like olden times or old like lore or mythical, stories and stuff like that. This one, it started in the 2000s.
Really?
This is new.
That's rare.
Yeah. So this isn't like hundreds of years old. So I want you to imagine this. You're in the Antarctic. There's ice everywhere. The dark, dark oceans underneath you. And you see what looks like an iceberg until it moves. And you're like, okay, it's an iceberg rolling over. But okay. Then you see a head. And you're like, that's odd. But, we humans, we find like faces and random things. Okay. Then you see like an arm reach up. You're like, that's not supposed to be there. Then it just slips away. Thankfully, in these stories, this thing has never attacked. This is just supposedly something that lives there, benevolent, thankfully. But Apparently it's down there in Antarctica, and it's just this giant humanoid thing that lives underwater and shows up the odd time. But again, the most interesting thing that I find is it's very new. And it started with Japanese scientific ships and vessels down in the Antarctic that have reported multiple sightings of this thing. So I'm curious to see if in, 500 years from now, what the stories about the Ninjin are going to be like.
That sounds eerily creepy.
Imagine just like being in Northern Ontario, middle of winter, you're ice fishing and just like, I'm on holiday. This thing like comes out of the ice.
Ugh. You know what? I'm glad that one wasn't a sturgeon like all the other ones.
Yeah.
So of all the episodes that we've done,
a whale.
yeah, of all the episodes we've done of unbelievable fishing lore, I think this is number 8.
Yeah.
So we've done like maybe 1 or 2 a year over the last 4 or 5 years. And I swear, not today, because we made special offer, but most of the ones in North America, it's easily explained by a sturgeon. Every single one.
Yeah.
It's just like, I saw this 10 to 12 foot thing swim under the surface, then disappear. It's like, here's a sturgeon. I'll tell you.
I saw it jump with a horse-like head.
And a sucker mouth. Anyway, that's cool.
So it's your turn now, Jesse. Tell us what you found.
All right, so this next one is pretty interesting. Again, we're going out of Ontario for now. I'm going to come back to Ontario in a bit, but this one is actually, it's pretty terrifying. I think me and Andrew both looked at this one and we were like, dear God. So have you ever heard of, from Japan, this cryptid is called the Kappa. Doesn't sound scary until you hear what it is. So this is the story. So the Kappa is Japan's original river monster. Now you think river monster is Jeremy Wade. Jeremy Wade would be terrified of this. He would not go anywhere near this river. I don't care how tough he is. This is terrifying.
I'm pretty sure Jeremy Wade talked about this in one of his episodes.
Did he?
I think so.
I guarantee he didn't catch it though.
How can you be sure? He's a legend.
So it's interesting. If you look online and you see a lot of these like cartoon or like drawn images of the Japanese Kappa and you see it, you're not super impressed with it. It kind of just looks like a little green creature with a turtle shell. It should have been called a Koopa, not a Kappa,
It looks like a turtle with like a dent in his head.
Yes.
He's like, he got hit by a rock.
So they're usually depicted as these little like green creatures with turtle shells, webbed hands and feet. They have this like weird like beak-like mouth. And it's like, yeah, like Andrew said, like a weird dent in the top of their head. So
it's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle that got hit too hard.
Yeah. Historically, the Kappa was a much more frightening creature, and it was closely associated with rivers mostly. So stories describe them as creatures that would grab people or animals near the water and drag them underneath. That's terrifying. I just watched Lake Placid the other day and I was like, I'm never swimming again. These things are worse because it's like a humanoid turtle. Like a crocodile I can get. If it grabs someone, good for him. He's hungry, right? But this is like, what are they going to do with you? So this is where it becomes particularly interesting because if you're fishing, this all of a sudden now is something that is actively going to try to kill you because it's legit hunting at the river's edge where I just happened to be trying to catch a steelhead. So think about the rivers a few hundred years ago. There weren't like warning signs. You don't need to go down to Florida and there's signs everywhere and it's like, beware crocodiles, do not feed the crocodiles. It's like, dude, I'm not going to try to feed a crocodile. There weren't lifeguards. We didn't have like modern like navionics or anything on our fish finders where we can see like shallow or deep areas of the river. Like nothing like that existed. So you could have a perfectly calm looking stretch of water with a steep drop off and there could be a Kappa waiting there and you'd never know what's coming. And if someone had happened to, unfortunately, drown, there wasn't necessarily a clear explanation for what happened in the past, right? So if this had happened, someone would have said, oh, well, the Kappa pulled him under and killed him. You're just like, oh, okay.
Poor Jim.
Yeah. The legend would be someone would disappear in the water. They'd say, oh, the Kappa pulled him under. And then people would say, well, don't go swimming there or don't get too close to the edge because if you do, the Kappa will pull you in and the same thing will happen to you. So this monster doesn't necessarily have to be something that people actually believed in, but I feel like something like that could also be used for like something that parents would use, right? Like, your parents would be like, oh, don't do this because this will happen. Parents would be like, okay, don't go near the water because the kappa will get you. That's what I think this turned out to be. Like, I know like there's all these legends of like weird turtle people and stuff, but I feel like some of these lores were lores for a reason that parents and grandparents used to protect their children. Like, what do you think about that?
I think so too. Like a lot of I've listened to some other podcasts and stuff like that about like myths and legends, stuff like that. Like awesome, like fun stories. But they have, there's fables and stuff like that have like a lesson to be learned, right?
Yeah.
And the kappas is, and I heard about them before on one of the podcasts, and apparently how you can avoid them or deter them. I don't know if you saw that. So apparently to avoid or get away from a kappa so it doesn't take you, because they have that bowl shape in their head that's full of water.
Yeah.
In Japanese culture, it's to show respect, you bow.
Yeah.
And so if you bow to the kappa, it has to bow back, and then it empties that bowl of water, and then it like falls unconscious or something. It's like there's two lessons in one. Don't swim there and respect your elders.
Exactly. It says the easiest way to defeat a kappa was to trick it into bowing, because the kappa was apparently, although it would kill people, very polite. So when it bows, the water spills out of the dish on its head or the divot in its head. And then suddenly the super terrifying, killing machine monster from the river becomes completely useless. And yeah,
I'm just so glad that our life and like consciousness is not dependent on us just, not spilling a cup of water on top of our head. Like, what if we're designed that would be?
Yeah. It also mentions in this article that I read that the kappa wasn't always just a monster. It could also represent the power of the water itself. Every time I'm in the water swimming, or when we're fishing a river or wading, or you go to Niagara Falls, the power of water is insane. Like this last weekend, I was in Lake Erie and it was like 45, 50K gusts. It was super windy, and we went swimming because the waves were like 6-7 feet high. And every time that massive wall of water just smashed into you, you couldn't stand. It would just knock you over. The power of water is insane. Mm-hmm. So the lesson here is the kappa may or may not have been real. Maybe it's real. Probably not. But it teaches us some valuable lessons about respecting the power of water, to be polite to the elderly, and not to play near the river's edge. I like the kappa
Some
now.
good lessons.
Yeah. At first I was terrified. Now I like it.
I'm on his side now.
He's a good guy.
Your dad, you should have been playing there though, bud. That's definitely a good one. And that's kind of the fun part of going to other parts of the world. Like we have a lot of folklore or stories that are from like the Algonquin tribe and stuff like that. And they have some like amazing history and stuff like that, but there's so many other cultures who have a variety of their own like lore and stuff like that from all these things, and it's just fun and interesting to look at these different areas for that reason. Which is why we're not going far. We're still in Japan.
Yay!
This one is called the Umibozu. I have to say again, as we have in previous episodes, if we mess up on how this is pronounced, or the area, or the person's name, we're no international. Like, I'm probably saying it wrong. So don't hold it against us. We're doing our best.
And by probably, I mean 100%.
So the Umibozu, it translates to the sea monk. So this one isn't necessarily a cryptid. However, it is a creature from Japanese folklore, much like the kappa. Now, it's funny because its name is actually Umibozu. It's not the name of the actual whole creature. That's its actual name, supposedly. So here's what it does. And again, that the name translates to sea monk. You might think, oh, like it's like sea monkeys or sea monk, some, benevolent guy who maybe is a giant who lives in the Antarctic. It's like, doesn't sound too bad. Or is it? So imagine this. You're sailing across the ocean. The water is completely calm. There's barely any wind. Everything's peaceful. And then all of a sudden, this enormous thing rises out of the sea. It's dark. It's huge. Its head is round. Worst of all, it's bald.
Oh.
And it's bald because it resembles the shaved head of a monk. Hence the name. Now, apparently, this guy has a problem with boats. So according to the traditional stories, this creature can suddenly appear at sea and cause trouble for sailors. And sometimes it'll ask them for a barrel. Now, if you had a giant, bald creature come up to you and, in the middle of a sea and be like, you, sailor, I want a barrel. What are you going to do?
Well, something similar happened to me a few weeks ago when Andrew went camping, and I had some of his camp barrels at my shop, and he's like, hey, I need my barrel. And I just gave it to him. That's what I would do.
Okay. Interesting. Do you want to know what your fate would be?
Death?
So, if they give it one, it starts filling the barrel with seawater.
Oh.
Then it dumps the water into the boat and keeps doing it until the boat sinks.
That's not very nice.
So the Umibozu is a giant supernatural monk whose preferred method of murder is aggressive water management. So there's apparently a way to escape it. And this is what I love about folklore stuff is just like with the kappa, you make a bow. Now, I want to ask you this, Jesse. It asks for a barrel. Your goal is to escape it. You know that if you give it an actual barrel, it'll flood your boat and you sink. So what are you going to do?
I'm going to give him a barrel with a bunch of holes in it.
Ooh, very good. So what the lore says, folklore is you give it a barrel that doesn't have a bottom. So it scoops the water, goes right through the barrel, it gets confused, and you just sail away. So if apparently its preferred form of murder is, like it said, aggressive water management, it has a very poor knowledge of water management. But that's something where, again, this story, they say, is likely made up or got its start because the ocean is so unpredictable. And we've even seen it here where all of a sudden a storm will whip up. Again, back then you didn't have forecasts, but you look and it's like, oh, there's nothing on the horizon, no storms. And then by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a huge windstorm, it's thunder, lightning, and we have to come off the lake or the river. The same thing, even to a greater extent, happens on oceans. So this was one way that they figured they were explaining how, unknown and unpredictable a calm sea could be, where it's essentially like some giant is coming out of nowhere and flooding your boat. So that's supposedly how it got its start. But sometimes when that happens, the easiest explanation for, people back then was that wasn't a rogue storm. There's a giant bald man asked for a barrel and then filled my boat with water.
I feel like maybe some captain was just embarrassed that he capsized his boat.
Yeah.
And then he just made up some random story, but he wasn't good at making up stories. He's just like, yeah. And then we gave him a barrel. They're like, gave who a barrel? He's this big monk. And he was bald. Oh, man. That's not really... This episode is supposed to be unbelievable fishing lore, and that's true. That is unbelievable, Andrew. All right, this next one's kind of creepy. So, have you ever heard, Andrew, of the pink river dolphins that became humans?
I've heard of pink river dolphins.
Yes.
But I am unaware of the human ones.
Yes, and this is 100% true. I'm almost positive.
You know where I learned about the pink river dolphins?
Where?
Jeremy Wade.
That's true. They're actually very interesting. So picture this. You're fishing on the Amazon River at sunset. The water's getting dark. The jungle's going quiet, except for the murder birds. And suddenly you see something beside your boat. What is it? It's a pink dolphin. And we've seen, videos
An ugly mermaid.
Yeah, they don't look like the regular gray dolphins you see, like Flipper. They are kind of weird looking animals.
Pink fleshy color.
Yeah.
It's gross. They're a really cool animal, but they look gross.
But they don't even look like a normal dolphin. They're kind of a weird dolphin. Yeah. So it's like a weird flesh colored weird dolphin.
It looks like you flayed a dolphin and it's weird pink muscles there. It's yay, I'm still cool.
So according to some Amazon folklore, that dolphin that you might see beside your boat might actually not be a dolphin, because the legend says that after dark, the Amazon river dolphin, or boto, can climb out of the river, transform into a handsome man, put on a white suit and a hat, and walk into nearby villages. And apparently it mentions that it's kind of like the dolphin's like a ladies' man kind of guy. which is kind
so
of
the
weird.
Colonel, what did he do? Make fried chicken? Like, that's what I'm picturing right now.
So I picture like this like Boto or like this Boto man dolphin guy. He shows up at parties and then he's kind of like Cinderella. Like at midnight, he has to go back, into the river and jumps back in. I don't know. So also, where does he get the hat? Not sure. Interesting.
That's a great question. But the suit, believable.
Yes, clearly. I know. The suit and hat, like, I don't get that part. How does that get made up? Anyway. See, I think it'd be more terrifying if they're like, hey, it's a dolphin. It turns into a man who is obviously nude, and then he runs around into the village. Like a
just streaking.
So anyway, as if this lore doesn't get more weird. So they say that this Boto man can lure people into an underwater world. People who follow the creature into the river may never come back. But does that mean that they just went to this underwater world and never came back? Or does this mean that he ate them? So I think it's one of those other things, right? So you have like the Amazon River is like probably one of the craziest bodies of water in the world for like weird creatures living in it that could kill you.
There were a number of episodes done from river monsters in the Amazon.
I'm almost positive 75% of the episodes were from there. So for that reason, I feel like this Boto man or like the pink dolphin man could be one of those things where the parents were like, hey, see that weird dolphin? Stay out of the water at night because this thing will take you. Problem solved. Now the kids are like, I'm freaked out. I don't want to go to this underwater world or get eaten by a weird pink dolphin. So weird. Now the bad thing... Go ahead.
I was going to say, what I'm imagining is like the Boto man comes out, womanizer, starts like chatting up these girls. He's like, hey, come back to my place. And like, while they're like wading into the river, he's just like, you can breathe underwater, right?
Because we all know dolphins can, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's the bad thing. You may think, well, maybe we'll just hunt them down and not have to worry about them in the future. Well, unfortunately, the Boto is considered sacred. Killing one is supposed to bring terrible luck. And some people even believe that making eye contact with one can even bring you constant nightmares. So if one surfaces beside your boat, what happens? Well, you look at it, unfortunately.
You crap yourself.
According to the legend, you're now apparently sleeping terribly for the rest of your life because you stared at it.
Nice.
Oh, man. So anyway, we all know dolphins are super intelligent creatures, right? They're one of the smartest mammals. But I don't think they're smart enough yet to tailor their own suits and hats and walk on dry land. Not yet. One day.
That's true. But I would say most people aren't either. And I think that they're probably smarter than a lot of the people I know.
It's true.
Have you ever made your own suit and hat? I haven't.
If you gave me materials and it was like, those like you paint your own paint by number, it was like a sew by stitch
the pattern.
Yeah.
See, I was homeschooled to actually have not a suit, but I've made my own clothes.
We can tell.
I knew you were homeschooled. Look at that. We're dropping Andrew lore this episode too.
Oh, that's number 8. Just wait.
I like that. And yeah, that's cool to have one that is a real creature that has a bunch of lore and mythology around it. That is something that does exist.
Yeah.
And is kind of terrifying when you see it.
Have you ever seen that movie Nope?
Nope.
It's a thriller movie. I just watched it recently. I'm not going to ruin the ending for you. No, I guess I would.
He's like, well, now this doesn't make sense.
Let's just say the pink dolphin is similar to the alien in Nope in certain aspects of it, but I can't ruin it for you. But anyway, you should watch it. It's a super good movie. Yeah.
Interesting. You know what else is interesting?
What?
El Cuero. So this one, I want you to take a guess as to what that means. First of all, it's from Chile. I think it's El Cuero, El Curo, I'm not sure. Its name means the hide. Kind of scary. What are you picturing right now?
You mean like the hide of an animal?
I'm not clarifying. What are you picturing right now?
The hide.
When I tell you there's a creature that they just call the hide.
I feel like it's some kind of weird creature that hides, or it's the hide of an animal and it like drapes itself over like a horse And then as you walk by, it just like jumps up and jumps on you.
You're pretty close on both.
Whoa!
It's terrifying. This is probably the one that kind of gives me the most heebie-jeebies. It's like a cowhide, but alive still.
Ew.
Not still, in live. It's a weird hide that's alive. It's also very hungry. The L, I'm going to say Kuro. It comes from the indigenous Mapuche. I'm butchering that. The folklore, and later became part of wider Chilean folklore. It's described as a huge, flat, aquatic creature.
Ew.
Now you think, okay, a stingray. Maybe that's what it is. Kind of, but you're wrong. So imagine a gigantic piece of leather floating on the surface of a lake. It can move, which is also weird. Some descriptions say that it resembles an enormous stingray. Others describe it as having tentacles or claw-like structures around its edge. And according to legends, this thing isn't friendly. So it waits in the water. It's an ambush predator. When something gets close, it wraps itself around the victim. So imagine here you're walking by a lake in Chile, or if this is an invasive species, you're walking by your regular pond, your lake that you like to go shore fishing at. You see what looks to be like this large animal hide kind of just floating in the water. You're like, oh, that's weird, just on the shore. Somebody left a cowhide here, and then it moves. And then you have two options. You have option 1, investigate because that shouldn't happen. Or option 2, you run. If you chose option 1, congratulations, you're now part of this story. The creature supposedly spreads itself out across the water, grabs its victim, and drags it beneath the surface. And like the way I'm picturing it is, it might be a different color because it's not like hide color, but like, you know, when we're fishing in the Kawarthas, there's those really like cheese mats.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, it's a big thing. Imagine something like that, and all of a sudden it's just like, I'm alive, and like folds over and like grabs you and just like suffocates you into the water. Like, that's terrifying.
That is terrifying.
And the crazy thing about this, and why I like this one and find it more terrifying, is a lot of these cryptids are like, oh, well, it's a, you know, like Jesse said, oh, it could be explained because it's a large fish. It's a sturgeon or something like that. This thing is like, what is this? Who thought of this? Who maybe saw something that resembled this and experienced something like this? That's terrifying. It's like a murderous coat. Like, that's terrible.
A murderous coat.
So it's you know, it's not like, oh, there's a weird like serpent somewhere around. It's like, oh, it looks like a piece of garbage and now you're dead. Like, that's crazy. Now, people often compare it to a ray. They move through the water that can, you know, it can look unnatural. It doesn't swim like a fish. Like, they have like these weird like undulating ribbon-like movements, but it doesn't match any description of a ray. Now, again, it's not like a zoological creature where there's like, all the species that we found, they don't look like rays. But these traditional stories, they have a lot of like independently verified like observations. So a lot of people apparently have seen this thing. And similar to what you said before, Jesse, on this episode, its origins are thought to be the water is dangerous. The water is unknown. You don't know what's under the water. So it could have been there to prevent people or to deter people from going around unknown waters. Or maybe it's a distorted memory of a real monster that exists and is just like waiting there for you.
I'm not going to lie, though. If I was boating through like a pond and I saw like a cowhide floating in the water,
You'd look at it.
from a distance, I'm not going up to that.
Okay, but like if you see like floating debris or like something that looks out of place, you don't go look at it. Like, and it doesn't move. Like, you like, oh,
I'd throw a
what's that in
frog
the
at
water?
it.
It's like, oh, you go up fresh, you're like, oh, it's a stupid plastic bag.
Yeah.
Okay, you say that. How many times have you picked up a bloated fish out of the water? Because you're like, what's that? Like,
It's true.
Now that thing's alive and it just killed you.
A word of wisdom, though, for not picking up dead fish. So we were muskie fishing like a few years ago, and I saw this dead walleye floating in the water, and it was like a big walleye, and it was choked on a bluegill. It died because it tried to eat like a 7-inch bluegill, and it couldn't actually swallow it. So the thing was stuck in its mouth, and because their spines face back, it couldn't spit it out. So it couldn't spit it out, so it choked. So I picked the thing up to get a picture of it because I'm like, how often do you see that? And as soon as we pulled it out of the water, it's just like, whoa, it smelled so bad. And I kept like washing my hands and sanitizing them. I couldn't get the smell of dead fish off my hands for like 2 days. It's like rotting fish. Then I ate a sandwich. I'm like, oh God, no. The things that anglers do.
Oh, this smells like a Filet-O-Fish. Like, oh, there goes our McDonald's sponsorship.
All right, this next one is actually, it's back here in Canada. It's not in Ontario. I know there is a 5-mile lake here in Ontario, because in Ontario, there's 250,000 lakes. A lot of those lakes have names that are probably all the same or similar. Like, how many Bass Lakes or Trout Lakes are there in Ontario?
Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Stony Lake.
Trout Lake. I personally have probably been on 5 different trout lakes.
Yeah. So this is 5 Mile Lake in Alberta. So I actually found this interesting website. Check it out. It's called fearsome.critters.ca. Now, I found it has all these links to like weird sightings. And it's not just made up stuff. It's stuff that was seen in newspapers. No, I know.
Some of it is.
A lot of this stuff, you're like, okay, that's made up. But these stories are based on newspaper clippings, and it'll show you click on the story and it'll show you the actual photograph of that newspaper article. And it's interesting. It's like these articles are like, this one particularly was from a September 4th, 1931 newspaper from the Calgary Albertan newspaper. And this is called the 5 Mile Lake Turtle. This is a legit story from...
Does it have a dent in its head?
I hope not. So this particular one, it's apparently a 300-year-old turtle that lived in 5 Mile Lake. So back in the early 1930s, there was a story going around about this lake called 5 Mile Lake that had this giant sighting of things in it. So apparently, if you were foolish enough to paddle around in this lake, you had to keep one eye on the water, because there was a legend that there was something giant that lived in this lake. So it wasn't a muskie. Like a lot of the sightings, it's like, oh, it was a 50-inch muskie. That's a big fish, but that's not big. Like, yeah, it wasn't a sturgeon. A sturgeon is a really big fish. It wasn't that either. This was not just a turtle. This was a giant turtle. This story, it actually made its way all the way to the Parliament and Fish and Game Committee who were visiting the area. It's because they had this description that was pretty detailed from a lot of people. It wasn't just like, oh, one drunk guy that was fishing in his boat saw this. No, this was seen by many people. So according to the reports, this turtle was 3 feet wide across its back and had a 3-foot-long neck. They estimated it weighed about 300 pounds and was believed to be somewhere between 200 and 300 years old. So basically, someone had apparently discovered a prehistoric snapping turtle that basically had been stuck in this lake. Have you ever seen an alligator snapping turtle?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where...
Terrifying.
They're like snapping turtles, but
they're
giant.
down in like Louisiana and stuff like that. They have them down there.
Imagine seeing that in a lake in Ontario. I actually just saw a pretty big snapping turtle the other day. They're big. They're sizable. I'm sure we've all like seen them or caught them when we're fishing.
We were bass fishing and we saw, and I was like, look at that. It's like, and we were fishing a shoreline, and just I see like what looks like a stump, and then it just like disappears. I'm like, oh, it's a turtle. And you see it just like how they claw away through the water. It's so terrifying. It's
like they can't swim at all, but somehow they're making forward momentum. They're just like clawing their way, like doggy paddling underwater.
Pretty quick.
The thing that terrifies me the most is the fact that it says it has a 3-foot-long neck. Now, if you've ever picked up a snapping turtle, I have myself, the best way to pick up a snapping turtle is not to pick it up at all.
I was about to say,
they're
what?
Not good to pick up. Some people will pick them up by their tail. That's not good for the turtle. Pick them up by the back of the shell, but their neck comes out surprisingly far. I remember one time I was fishing with my nephew and I saw a snapping turtle in the river. It was not a giant one, but it was big. Maybe the shell was like the size of a big dinner plate. So I picked it up and was like, here, take a picture of it. And he was just like fumbling around with my phone. I was like, quickly. And the thing's neck was just swirling around trying to bite me. I was like, make it soon. But a 3-foot-long neck, like that thing could be right beside your boat and just like slam out and grab you like a rattlesnake. Oh, man. Imagine you're just like, oh, man, I got to go to the bathroom. So you like go up to the shore, start taking a pee, and then it's like, gone.
Yeah, my waist is not 3 feet high.
So this is an interesting part of the story. So apparently one canoeist got tired of dealing with this turtle in the lake. I don't know if it was terrorizing people, but apparently maybe he was like, I'm fed up of hearing all this stupid stuff about this. So he went out in the lake in his canoe with an axe, not just one of those small ones. Like I'm talking one of those giant, tree splitting axes. And he hit the turtle with the axe directly on the shell. And according to the report, the turtle's back was so heavily protected that the axe blade simply glanced off its shell with no damage. And the turtle just like wilded away like nothing happened. So not only is this thing possibly sketchy, snapping turtles are sketchy, and like I like seeing them from a distance. I like knowing where they are. I would never want to be surprised by one like coming up behind me or something. And those are the ones that aren't 300 pounds.
Yeah.
So if that does exist, and like, hey, that could possibly be real, right? People saw this. This was in 1931. So possibly.
I believe that because I've seen with my own two eyes a larger than normal snapping turtle in Ontario waters, because they're normally, they get like 16 to 18 inches long. Like this thing was every bit of 2 feet across in that shell.
Yeah,
100%. Like it wouldn't surprise me that there are like the odd individuals that are bigger. Like we talked about even with sturgeon. It's like, lake sturgeon, they only get 4 feet long. Yeah, until you look at how there was one that was recorded in the river flowing into Lake Huron that was 12 feet long, like 3 times its natural size.
Yeah.
So like I definitely think that could be real.
Yeah. So if you do see that, if you're out fishing and you do see that, make sure you get a picture and tag us on Instagram so I can see what it looks like. if you don't die first.
Yeah. Take a picture, send it to me so I can just have nightmares for the rest of my life. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to an area in the world that is known for having animals that just will kill you for the sake of killing you.
Australia?
Australia.
Nice.
Now, what I love about this is, again, like we said, Australia is like, like spiders galore, that super poisonous. Snakes galore, super poisonous. Animals that'll, kick you and disembowel you. Like, just everything there is like, that careful, mate, that could kill you. Like, that's just how life is there. But this one is kind of like just a fun one. It's called the bunyip. It's probably Australia's most famous water monster. There's not really one universal description of what the bunyip looks like. There's a bunch of different, accounts and stuff like that, but it's generally associated with waterways, swamps, billabongs, lakes, rivers, water holes, anything with water in it. And specifically places where it looks like water, where something could hide in it. It's not like nice, clear water, just kind of murky, muddy, dark. Now, like we said, Australian wildlife, it basically looks like it was just made to hate tourists. But this monster is described as, I don't know, some people might love it. It's like, a large furry creature, something that resembles a dog. It's something with a crocodile-like head. It looks like a seal with flippers. Like, it's just all over. Either the thing looks cute or it looks terrible. I don't know. But that's why it's difficult to say what it is. And that's kind of the whole thing about the bunyip. So early European accounts describe strange noises coming from waterways. Others describe creatures seen briefly or near the water. And one early 19th century account associated with Lake Bathurst described a strange creature that reportedly made a sound compared to a porpoise and appeared to have a dark bulldog-like head. So imagine that. You're near an Australian lake, it's quiet, you hear something in the water, you look over, nothing there. You hear something else, you look, there's movement, a splash, can't see what it was. Then you see something like dark appear, it's like, is that a head? It looks like a bulldog. You're like, there shouldn't be a bulldog out here. It makes a weird noise. You're like, that's not what bulldogs sound like. So you go to tell someone like, hey, buddy, you see that? You look back, gone. You know what that was? That was a bunyip. There's so many different things, even like giant bones. People think that some of the old prehistoric animals that are found in like the fossils and bones and stuff like that are found in Australia, they would assume that's what the bunyip was. And it's like, this thing must be giant and terrifying. But it's like, it's just other dinosaur bones. So it's been like theorized as to what this thing is. No one knows what the bunyip is. The bunyip has become something that is just anything that's unexplainable out there in the water. And I love that because that means the bunyip is our first confirmed invasive species monster that we have in Canada. Because I tell you this, how many times you've been fishing and you hear a splash and you look and there's nothing there, or you hear a noise, you're like, what was that? And you see something slip into the water. Or like, was that a carp? Was that a beaver? Was it a muskrat? It didn't look like that. You know what it was? A bunyip. So that has been one of my favorite ones from, and Australia I'll probably go back to another time because Australia has a bunch of cool ones. But the bunyip, that's just kind of a fun one. And it's not necessarily, angry or mean.
Just shy.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where the bunyip exists not because you prove that it exists. You can prove that you can't identify what that was. That means it was the bunyip.
Fair enough. That's awesome. All right, I got one left. And this one is close to home. This, again, I got from that website. If you look carefully on that website, you will see an article about Andrew's mom. She doesn't listen to this anyway, don't worry. If she did, I'd be terrified.
I think she does.
Uh-oh. I was waiting for Andrew to say that about my mom, and I would have been like, true, but he didn't. So. Anyway, this one is actually more interesting. It's August 24th, 1931, in the Globe newspaper. We've all heard about the Globe. It's what smart people read. But this is the article. It was about something that they called the Oshawa sea serpent. Interesting. There's lots of things to be afraid of in Oshawa, but this one...
Most of them are on land.
Yeah, the majority of them are on land. But this one is slightly sketchy. And again, this may be explained by a sturgeon, but maybe you can decide that later. So imagine that you are at Lakeview Park in Oshawa, and if you're familiar with that area, lots of people fish down there. It's summer evening, this time of year.
Easily recognized by the giant ugly building that's right by the nice beach.
Yep.
Beautiful.
So this animal in this newspaper article, it was described as a 30-foot monster. Now, word spread about this, and apparently people were so convinced that something giant was swimming offshore that hundreds of curious spectators at the time showed up along the shoreline hoping to get a glimpse of it. But this is where it starts to get a little bit weird. Apparently there was some guy named... His name was Curly. Like this was 1931 or something.
That was peak naming back then in the 30s.
Some guy named Curly Roo. He basically said he saw it, but he said that the newspapers exaggerated it. According to him, it wasn't actually a sea serpent. It was just a really big fish. But some other guy who was there, this guy named Bert Ford, he disagrees because he said that he saw it and it had to be at least 30 feet long. Now, I don't know if you remember, but in our previous fishing lore episodes, it always seemed that was the number, 30 feet. When people describe things, it would either be like, it's 30 feet big. Like that's how big the big things always were. Working, and building stuff for work and stuff, I quickly realized that people that I work with don't understand how long things are. If you're like, how long is that piece of wood? They're like, oh, it's got to be like 12 feet long. It's a 8-foot 2x4. Like people don't understand or conceptualize how long things actually are. So if someone says it's 30 feet, it's probably not even 20. That's just my thought. And at that point, it could probably be a sturgeon, like a giant one, because they do get that big. Not 30 feet though. So this is some of the explanations that some of the people thought. So they said, some guy was like, no, it was just a big fish. Another guy's like, no, it was 30 feet long. Some other people said, you know what? It was just a massive school of carp thrashing around together, creating such a disturbance that people thought it was just like one giant fish. Maybe they were all swimming in a line. Who knows? I've seen carp do that. All kind of like following each other in a line. I've never seen that right under the surface, though. This actually was seen, and it's interesting because the newspaper wondered whether Oshawa's monster might actually have migrated from Lake Erie through the newly opened Welland Canal, because Lake Erie already had a famous monster of its own. We debunked it. It was basically a sturgeon.
A sturgeon, yeah. Oh, that wasn't what I was wondering. What's his name?
I don't remember its name either. I was hoping you did. So basically, when they cut open the new canal, they thought that this giant monster that had been seen many times in Lake Erie, which as we debunked, it had turned out to be a sturgeon that was seen about 40 years earlier and no one had seen since. So they thought that this fish had swam through the Welland Canal into Lake Ontario eventually, and for some reason decided to stop in the port of Oshawa, which is just a great location. I mean, it's amazing. So it's interesting. Some of these articles, the weird things people saw at the time, and again, this was like almost 100 years ago, the way they described it, and they were like adamant at what they saw. Like this was before people had seen like, scary movies or like, monster movies or like CG stuff or monsters and stuff. This is just people being like, 30-foot monster. It's like the only thing they could possibly imagine that being was a sea serpent.
So I wonder, for anyone in probably Canada or Ontario, they know the city of Oshawa. People in the States, even some of you might know the reputation of Oshawa. I'm curious to know, back in, the 1930s, if there was a large opioid, epidemic in Oshawa. And maybe that's why a lot of people saw this weird thing. A fun little piece of history, actually. So if you look behind me, there's that salmon hanging on that board. Now, I didn't catch that salmon. That came from my neighbor, Gord. And he caught that salmon years ago. It's a skin mount. And it's mounted to an old piece of pine. That pine board that's there is actually a bed rail from the old army barracks that were in the Oshawa, stationed in the Oshawa Harbor. There's a little building there, there's a little army barracks, and that's part of the bed sideboard that it was mounted onto, because he moved that old army barracks up to his like cottage up north. He just took the whole building, and I was like, all right. So I'm imagining like that would be kind of fun is if that board was there and maybe it too saw. If wood could speak, maybe it saw that monster.
I don't think that in 1930 Oshawa was sketchy like it is now. If you live there, no offense, Andrew lives there. I grew up in Oshawa, but looking at pictures of Oshawa in the 1930s, it was basically GM. GM was why people were there. It was the Motor City, right? Oshawa was like the Motor City of Canada.
It's the Detroit of Canada.
Yeah.
It's because it's right across some lake from Detroit.
And maybe all that noise from the machines running, the hums of the electric and diesel-powered generators running, attracted that big 30-foot monster, which was probably just a schooler cart.
See, it was making noise, just like the Livingston lures do. It works! Oh, that's excellent. Well, I like this. I still have a few more that I researched. I'm sure Jesse has a couple more that he has. So we're going to save a couple more of these, like awesome cryptids / folklore creatures, for another episode in the future, because I always enjoy making these. We still like to sprinkle them in every once in a while, and it's kind of one of those just fun, silly episodes where we get to tell stories. And like you said, no better place to share this than around a campfire, maybe after a few drinks, because you'll find it funnier. But and maybe at that point, you'll think you're seeing these things too. But we do want to thank everyone who has, tuned in, who's listened. We really appreciate your support by just listening to the podcasts and or watching us on YouTube. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, we have a lot of like short form content and like long form content as well. Some videos up there. We have our AOA in the Wild video vlogs that are up, and they're pretty fun. It's kind of a behind the scenes of what Jesse and I get up to when we're not, in front of our computers or actually on the water. And sometimes it's still about that. So if you like this, you'll probably like those. Another big thanks to anyone who is supporting us on Patreon, because that is a huge help, helping to cover the costs. Jesse will have everything linked down below. If you'd like to help support us on Patreon, it's much appreciated. It helps us to continue having motivation and the funds to continue doing this show and the other content that we create as well. But if you can't afford to do so, I get it. Times are tough. Leave a comment down below. Leave a rating. Tell your friends. Send your friend this episode and be like, these guys aren't always this weird, but this is a fun episode. Listen to it. Now, before we go, I do have one more thing that I have to say, and that is, Jesse, you have the quote of the week.
All right. Good thing I'm fast on my feet, thinking. Just awkward silence. Okay, here's one. If you see a weird turtle man, run as fast as you can.